I hope you're all settled well, grabbed your coffees and grabbed what you need. And I don't know who the VIPs are there. There's two white chairs with VIPs sat there. Who are these people? Who are they? From my experience, you guys are all the VIPs, right? That was a cheesy customer piece I thought I'd just drop in there. Firstly, I'd like to kind of apologise, but not. I have a disability, so I don't know if you, for those of you who didn't see me hobble up and down towards the stage, I need to stay still, otherwise I will fall over. So apologies for that. I'm not particularly smartly dressed. I've got a pair of trainers on, nothing to do with my disability, it's just that I'm from Croydon, and that's the general uniform when you grow up in that area. Listen, aside from that, I'm really super excited to be here with you today. I'm not part of a business, I'm not part of a brand, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just here to talk to you about how I feel brands, businesses, individuals, consultants can help pick up and drive omnichannel success. I've spent the last few months as a consultant in an advisory doing similar piece of work, but prior to that, I was at Mulberry England for just over 9 years. And during that time, I led and drove our omnichannel successes and omnichannel program. Firstly, managing pure digital, and then reaching into digital and in-store technology, and then full breadth of technology, always with commerciality and customer experience in mind. So I'll use that experience quite specifically in this presentation today. It continues to be a really interesting time. We can connect and touch with us customers at various touch points, which shows huge opportunity, more and more so. But of course, with that opportunity comes complexity. There's the expectations that the customers should experience that same experience at every single touch point as well. But in order for that to happen, in order for those things to be seamless, it's about integrating information, data, technology, tools, and business mindsets to make that work. E-com is still growing exponentially, and social media more than ever. I mean, this has been a long story for a long time, but that's completely changed the way that we reach customers, and customers discover brands, discover products. So experiences in every single one of those must be seamless. Now here's a classic kind of timeline you've probably seen before, you've probably used before, you probably built one yourself, but it shows that overall picture, and I'm old enough to be way back at that single channel right back on the left, and I remember that fundamental change in understanding what multi-channel was all those years ago when I was at Jack Wills. I think as we head towards where omnichannel is in this picture and heading towards unified commerce, it is somewhat blurry, and actually some people might say that version of unified commerce there is actually and should be omnichannel. I guess the difference between the two is, in omnichannel word, in its first version, it is customer must be treated and experienced the same across all touch points, whereas in unified commerce, that still exists all the way through to customer center, contact center, but all of those experiences must work together to help create that experience as well. So that's the customer data right bang in the center. And here's an example of a customer journey. It's one single example of a customer journey. But first things first, we always have to understand who our customer is. And it sounds really obvious, but omnichannel world, customer journey, as I mentioned before, is more complex than ever. They might discover your brand on Instagram, but then might have to validate that discovery of that brand with their friends on other social media platforms, and then validate the price, the value, at one of your touch points, be it in-store, be it on mobile device, or on mobile app. And at that stage, they then might transact in one of these positions and pick up from store. So this is one single example, but it has not been linear for such a long time and is getting more and more complex. It's fragmented, it's dynamic, and it's individualized. But success in this omnichannel world It means you have to map out this customer journey and look to identify where these pain points are and where the opportunities are for your business to react in the right way as quickly as possible. Why Omni matters. Here's some stats that I've pulled, that you can pull, but it's huge. Omnichannel customers, so core omnichannel customers spend 15% more per transaction compared to single channel customers. Shoppers who interact with brands across multiple channels are 30% higher lifetime value. So what that ends up with, that's your best value, your most profitable customer is your omnichannel customer. And the benefits, I've got increased sales there, that's the outcome, but it's the loyalty, it's the retention, and more effective data collection around that to give the business insights that lead to those increased revenue streams. To successfully grow in this space, there's 4 pillars. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are going to be doing this today. I tend to do this when I go and visit these sorts of experiences. There's a lot of BS bingo, right? There's lots of things that will happen. You'll see pillars, right? You'll see lots and lots of pillars in slides. You'll see mention of AI. You'll hear mention of seamless, frictionless, omnichannel. So have a little game today, just a bit of advice, to stop you getting a little bit bored in some of these, and you maybe already, which is why I stopped and paused for a second there. Try and think of some additional words. I would ask you to speak, we've all got headphones on. So these 4 pillars, customer-centric approach, and again, that's another one of these wonderful buzzwords. I think a lot of brands, a lot of retailers think they're doing a customer-centric approach or have a customer-centric approach. I'm not entirely convinced that everyone actually understands what that is. It's about your technology architecture and infrastructure and having that integrated and available in real time. It's the utilization of data, single view of information and data, which then can lead to personalization. And that operational efficiency, which for me is not just driven by the processes, but it's driven by the business mindset and making sure the entire business understands what this change may mean, or what this stream may mean. So customer. Every omnichannel strategy must start with a customer. So you understand customer behavior, customer preferences, and pain points, and you segment your customers based on the interaction with all of these channels. It's also ensuring they get a consistent experience, whether they're engaging through the mobile apps, the stores, the digital stores, and a really good example of this is your digital presence will always be slightly different to your physical store. And I think what digital stores try and do is replicate that as much as they possibly can, right? That's been a continued piece of work for such a long time. But what I've seen the last few years is the difference in social media apps. And I'll use WeChat as an example in China. I'll use Instagram and others. For me, all of a sudden, that is now a different experience. And that doesn't have that same seamless narrative across every single touch point. So let alone being able to see and purchase product, but understanding who your brand is and what value your brand is giving your consumers needs to be consistent across every single one of those. So you must ensure customers receive that consistent experience. What we did around this is we gathered all of our consumer data and customer data together, which is incredibly hard for a number of different businesses, right? You have customer IDs in ERP, customer IDs in your digital stores, customer IDs in your POS systems, and various other methods. And in order to bring that together, you need to collate that into a single data warehouse. Many of you may have done that before. We managed it in Google Cloud. But in the end, what that enabled us to do was get a very clear picture of every single individual customer and we were able to celebrate that customer heterogeneity. We could see not just transactions, we could see returns. Immediately that gives us a view on how profitable that customer is. We could also see behavioral data. So we could understand that customer has viewed a product 17 times over the last 2 weeks. That really shows a clear intent on that purchase. So it's not just arms your marketing teams, but it marks your merchandising and curation teams as well. Not just your digital teams, also your store teams and your customer service teams. And I do think customer service always gets left a little bit out of this. They're always a last thought. But bringing that data together and getting trust and truth in that data can be quite tricky, and was actually one of the toughest things we did, but we managed to get through it. The output and the insights were phenomenal. So if anyone wants to come and speak to me about that afterwards, I'm happy to. So once we understand our data and our customers, the next step is looking to create that seamless experience. So how do we do that? A lot of businesses treat their individual campaigns in silos. They might have store events, they might have a digital campaign. And all of these can be disconnected from one another. So instead of thinking like channels, think like customers. Customers don't think like channels, they think of experiences, right? And you see this more and more these days. A customer puts something in their cart online, they expect that to be visible, to be present at every other touch point. So to achieve this, there's a lot of work you need to do in ensuring your systems, your processes, and your teams are integrated and working together. Now, in terms of a technology piece, not sure how many tech guys we've got here, there is somewhat of a view that you need one single unified platform that can bring all of this information together, manage it. I'm not entirely convinced that's the right way forward. And what worked for us was a composable architecture. Single view of information within those individual platforms and pieces, feeding in through an integration layer to each and every touch point and giving the insight that's needed. So back to data and personalization. Now, right now in this omnichannel world, one size fits all, it doesn't really work. And as I said, there's a certain level of personalization that customers will expect, is whether they're browsing your website, shopping in your store, or using your app, or experiencing your brand in any way. So this personalization is absolutely critical. Whether it's an email, offering products they browse before in the store, personalized greeting when they walk into a store, any of these, all of these touch points make these customers feel they're understood and they're valued. But it goes beyond marketing, as I said before. It's not about reaching out to these types of customers, it's about using this information in your stores, making that information available through your EPOS systems, be it with new stock technology, be it with Tulip Retail, who we used before, and your customer and your contact centers as well. And that personalization experience, I mean, everyone always uses Amazon as the key here, and it's great around products. You hit Amazon, and right in front of you, these are all the things that we think you may like to buy, which is great, and it's an old model we've been using for so long. But in this modern day, there's that perfect blend of content and commerce, and we know how important that is. There's a lot of cash being spent on creating curated, beautiful experiences on social that can be used in your digital experiences. The perfect example is how Netflix manages, of course. That's content and it's commerce, but it's that perfect blend of understanding exactly who you are and what you have liked right now versus what you liked 3 months ago. So it's that perfect blend of not just your Amazon piece, but it's Netflix. So the operational excellence, this is back to that mindset for me. Efficient omnichannel operations, absolutely key to this success. but omnichannel must come right the way through the building. That business mindset is incredibly important. Your retail teams must need to understand and know how valuable it is, not just for the business, but for them as a learning piece. The customer service team, the same. Your digital trading team, your digital marketing teams, all the way through to your logistics. And for those who manufacture as well, it's a real key, important part of that process. In order for that to happen, of course, the information cannot be stuck in those silos. It's a single view of information to everyone and consumable to everyone. So it's integrating your supply chain, logistics, delivery management from store to handle those complexities of different types of fulfillment, not just here, but in all separate nuances across the globe. And we must always think of the world first. And we're very, very good, and I've done this before myself, I've had my UK blinkers on for such a long time, and then tried to reproduce things and reuse things in other markets, and it just doesn't work, no matter how many white papers you read. But an example of how this worked for us, many of you had lots of success, I'm sure. However difficult COVID was, and there's another buzzword today that will come up probably quite a lot, we're still talking about it. But I think there's lots of things that we were able to do in that space and in that focused time. We managed to make use of the stock in our stores. We managed to build an order management system so that every single one of our stores, which had valuable, very, very valuable stock in them, were able to be used and sent to customers. And our guys in the stores were able to come in, do their work and do a job. So it's great from an operational perspective. It's great from a depth of stock perspective, because all of a sudden your digital customers are seeing much bigger volumes of stock for each and every item. But it's also the breadth. So not every single product that was available in our e-commerce warehouse was available in our stores and vice versa. So all of a sudden, customers are seeing a full view. And actually, that quadrupled across the UK. We picked up that model, dropped it in the US, dropped it in Asia as well. So things like this, and that's with customer data, information right at the center. Key core metrics to track this customer lifetime value, how omnichannel engagement is boosting your long-term value, of course. Your customer retention rate is another. Cross-channel conversion rates, how customers move between those touch points, and of course things like average order value. I think the key point here is, in the interesting way that I would use this information, and it was an interesting test, and these things are always good to test. How many of you are in budget mode at the moment, right? So when you start building out your budgets, that's based on a volume of transactions, or perhaps the reverse. This is the expected growth in each and every market, but that's not based on customer. Did an interesting piece with our commercial finance team, whereby we completely refigured that model. We know that for this particular market, in this particular year, 75% of the transactions were made by active customers. So we know, in order for us to grow and to increase that base, we need to hand our digital marketing team and our brand marketing team actions that maintain that retention and increase that retention. That then drives that budget change. We also know that 10%, 15% is all down to new customers, and the remaining is down to the lapsed customers who are bringing back. So all of a sudden you're kind of changing the way you can map and match your budget to customer, not just a volume of transactions and a number that you know you need to increase to hit your targets. It's a really interesting exercise to take, so I would suggest, if you have time this time of year, to sit with your commercial finance teams and work that through. Honestly, it's a really interesting model. The challenge is, as I mentioned before, is the whole business not being behind it. The whole business not understanding what this means, and parts of those businesses not necessarily understanding and trusted information and data. So if your technology and your digital teams have information about customer, information about transactions, and you share that with your retail teams, there is always a little bit of trust around what figures are true and what figures are not. Same for your production teams as well, on the volume of stock that's in your business, which is absolutely key. You have to get behind that information. You have to charge that information through to senior people in the business to make sure they understand the value. And again, try and remove those silos as much as you can. Now, legacy systems is always a fun topic for me. We didn't call them legacy systems, we called them heritage business systems at Mulberry. And those of you who've seen me speak before, I've used that a number of times. That's one of my own buzzwords, sorry. And it's really interesting, and there's the idea that I need to change all of my legacy systems because they're old. They have been doing a job for a number of years. And more often than not, it's the processes and interactions in and around those business systems that may need to be looked at over and above a very, very expensive transformation piece. And again, that's another composable program in my eyes, right there. So you need to look at and focus what's important right now. Front-end business systems and architecture move incredibly fast in this day and age. You just need to make sure that your legacy or heritage systems underneath are working at the same or a similar pace. So they're not creating any bottlenecks through production, through financial reconciliation, and other parts of the business. And again, leadership. Your leadership team behind, all the way through to business owners. Incredibly lucky in my last role at Mulberry because we had Omnichannel as a core pillar. So that came right through from the CEO, and it was incredibly important for him and has been. And every single time Mulberry is mentioned, Omnichannel is a key part of that conversation. But if you don't have that, that needs to come from right at the top, be fed through the leadership so that everyone understands. And again, I must say that consumable word. People need to understand what that means. Future. Not sure how much time I've got. I'm not sure I'm going slightly over. Omnichannel, unified commerce I spoke to you about before, but emerging trends and exciting trends that some of you may have seen already. Augmented reality, virtual reality, virtual try-ons, in-store experiences from your home, what Peloton can do. I can drop my Peloton bike right in front of me. I can try a pair of Nike trainers on my feet, right? Things like that are incredible, but it needs to be at every touch point as well. It cannot be just on a web mobile app. It cannot be just in your store. Sustainability integration. Sustainability was another huge pillar for Mulberry, but that information about product, the transparency of that information that we have, the transparency of information around pre-loved products is just as important. And that needs to be in the hands of our customer service team, our guys in the store, and in the eyes of our consumers as they're viewing our product. Others, hyper-personalization, which I'm sure you'll see and hear about a lot today. Digital mannequins, which is another really exciting point. As some of you may have seen that in some of the stores. There's the excitement of in-store experiences, and lastly, partnerships. So it's great that we can manage and leverage our own customer touch points, but you could partner with department stores. We managed to partner with Shinsegae in Korea to manage ship from store, direct with those partners. Amazon, lots of marketplaces will be able to manage and continue their best to try and create that seamless interaction. So your action plan. Map out your interactions across all channels and identify your pain points, identify your opportunities, and where you need to invest in the technology to drive that change. Bring your customer data together, all of your information data around customer, around stock, and leverage and use machine learning and AI to personalize those experiences at every touch point. Streamline those processes for faster delivery through your own business systems and then out to the customer. And of course, continually look to analyze and update and change your products and your processes. So it's great that we can make one fundamental change, but omnichannel, customer centricity is charged from a continuation of understanding what your customer needs first. So keep listening through voice of customer, keep listening through behavioral analytics, because that will charge your customer experience program. Okay, so just to wrap up, thank you very much, guys. And again, what I've tried to show today, it's not just about technology or managing different channels, it's about that seamless, personalized experience across every single touch point. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoy your day, and I hope you enjoy the bingo if you get a chance to tuck in. Thank you very much.